Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal, Tim Gagnon, and this is the Modern Masters podcast. And oh my goodness, hey, Melody, I see you live already. Thank you very much for watching. We got a great show for you today. You're going to love it. I have got my new friend, Melinda Whitmore. It's going to be awesome. And she's going to be talking to us about her art, her career, and all kinds of great things. Wait till you see her sculptures, wait till you see her paintings, and wait till you see her Munsell mobile thing that is just mind-blowing, and she's crazy to even have attempted it, and I'm proud of her for it already. So, but she's going to be coming on in just a second. But before we do that, let me remind you to look down a little scrolling thing on the screen here to like this post, share this post, or if you want, you can do what I'm about to do, and I'm going to go on my cell phone here, and I'm going to go to the Gagnon Atelier Facebook page, which I hope is where you're watching this, and I hope that you've liked that page. And I am going to find the video, and there it is, right? Let's see, boy, there's a lot of things on here. Let me tell you. And there it is right there. And so I'm going to start a watch party just like that. There we are in the watch party. And what a watch party does that is just, it's just wicked cool. What a watch party does is it sends a notification to my entire friend list that says, hey, Tim is watching this video. And there's a little button that says, click here to join the watch party. And then they can click on it and they can watch it. So it would send your entire friend list to let them know that you are watching Tim and Melinda on the Modern Mastered podcast, and then they could watch with you, and that would be cool. So I would appreciate if you do that. Also, we have a YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, and let's say you've missed one of these episodes and for some reason you can't scroll down, you don't want to scroll all the way down on Facebook to find it, you can go on our YouTube channel. And what I do is after about a week or two on Facebook, I move them over to the YouTube channel. And so we've got a ton of videos on the Gagnon Atelier YouTube channel as well. So we appreciate you checking that out. Well, enough for your old pal Tim just flapping his gums. It is time to bring on our new friend. And here she comes in. Once I turn off my solo, boom, there she is. Welcome to the show, Melinda.
Good morning.
Good morning. And this is a nice rare treat. We're both in the same time zone, so that's great.
Yeah. For some reason, I was thinking that Florida was on Eastern time, but
yeah, Florida's got that in it, you know. The little I'm in the Panhandle part, so Florida's big. So yeah, and you know what's funny is the Eastern time zone is about 30 minutes that way.
Oh,
so I'm like right on the edge.
nice.
Yeah.
So if you're having a bad day and you need to lose an hour, you can just drive
go for a ride. Yeah, just go for a ride over to Port St. Joe.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Back in the day, I used to work on Tyndall Air Force Base, and you could literally just drive to the other side of the Air Force Base, and boom, that was the time zone change. So depending on what part of the Air Force Base you were on, you were in a different time zone.
Oh God, that had to have been confusing.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that can literally cross the street; they're in a different time zone. Yeah, think about that. That's pretty weird. Now, where are you located? Tell us where you're located.
I am just outside of Chicago, in a little town called Oak Park, which is the home to Frank Lloyd Wright and his studio and museum and lots of beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright homes. So we love where we're at because it's 5 minutes to get right into Chicago. So,
do you like it in the winter?
I actually am probably one of the weird freaks on this planet that loves winter. Oh, wow.
I love winter from photos. Yeah, I love to look at photos of winter from Florida. That's what I like to do. Yeah, I had enough winter for my first 19 years of life to never see it again. I'm fine.
Okay, nice. That's true. Because being from New Hampshire.
I'm from northern New Hampshire. It's a little town called Berlin, New Hampshire. It's pretty close to the border of Canada. It's such a small town. There's more moose than people.
Love that.
Yeah, you say you love that. And it's one of those things where it's like it should be a massive tourist trap.
Oh.
Because it's the most beautiful, no exaggeration. I'm not bragging on my hometown, but I am, but I'm not. It is literally probably one, if you love the outdoors and mountains and snow and just foliage, the best foliage in the world is in my area where I grew up. People travel from all over the world to see the foliage. And, my backyard growing up, you'd walk backyard 50 feet and then mountain. I mean, it's literally a wall of granite. And we'd play in that and all that. It should be a tourist trap, but there's no way to get to it because there's no highways.
Okay.
But there's a highway between Vermont and New Hampshire, and then you got to drive like this.
Right.
For hours to get to my hometown, and through little tiny country roads going up and down hills like this. And so nobody goes.
Well, it sounds dreamy to me, I think.
It does. I mean, people go there and they're like, their minds are blown, but I'll take the Sugar White Sands, Panama City Beach, Florida. Thank you very much. So I'm so glad that you're here. I've been following you on social media and your website. I actually found you before I found you on social media. I found you on a website where you were doing a blog talking about your Munsell mobile that you made. I want to talk about that a little bit later, but that's how I found you the first time.
Okay.
So that's when, and then I saw we had like a zillion, common friends or what, I don't know, what do they call that on Facebook? Friends in common or mutual friends, mutual friends.
Mutual friends, yes.
And so I friend requested you and you said, I don't know who this old schmuck face is, but I'm going to say yes. And she accepted my friend request and now I'm cool. But then I started really seeing your artwork and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so talented. And then the more I followed you, the more I started really admiring your artwork and just really, really impressed with your career and stuff. And so I was like, I have to have you on the show. And so here we are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We know you're in Chicago. Are you originally from Chicago area?
Yes, I am. I'm from Northwest suburb of Chicago and went to school at Indiana University down in Bloomington. So I was stayed in the Midwest for quite a while and then went for graduate school in New York. So I went to New York Academy of Art and stayed out on the East Coast for a few years, moved down to Virginia for a while. I lived in Charlottesville. And then came back to Chicago and because I had an opportunity to work in the prints and drawings department at the Art Institute of Chicago. Wow. So nice. Yeah. And had a really great experience there, working as a kind of assistant to the curators there. They were curating a show in particular of figurative artists. And I kind of fell into the slot pretty well because most of the artists in this particular show, this particular collection, were all my instructors and my mentors. So I was fortunate to be able to do the biographical information for the show catalog, and I wrote all of that for them, doing the research and contacting all of my old teachers. And then I was there for about a year or so, and then I was able to land a teaching job in the city at a small art college. And it was there a few years later that my soon-to-be husband and I met, and he came
in the art studio. Boom.
Yeah, and he came fresh out of New York Academy as well. So we were at the same school and had kind of parallel lives, just a few years apart. And so when we got together, we had decided to leave that school and start our own school because we felt that there were things that were being missed as to what the curriculum was, and we just felt that we could do a better job of teaching what we felt was important for artists, and doing it at a much more reasonable price point, because as you know, I mean, the prices of education have ballooned, and I think it's even more insane that that we have art students who are paying so much money for going to art school, and yet very little opportunity for earning potential coming out. So we thought that it was going to be to our advantage to start our own thing, and that was our school, Vitruvian Fine Art Studio.
Awesome.
We started in 2006, and we still have it to this day as well. And but I also teach in Chicago. I see Grace, one of my former students.
I was about to tell you, she's got some. She says best instructor ever.
Oh,
SAIC. Such an honor to have had her class. Watch out.
Yeah, and I've felt so lucky to be able to have the amazing students at the Art Institute. I think we all kind of find each other. Us representational artists kind of find each other. And I think that the internet has been, and there's Jack too. Love Jack. We tend to kind of find each other, and I think it's a really special thing that the internet has been able to bring us together, people from all over the world who have this kind of like-minded aesthetic and interest. So
it's been interesting seeing the realist art movement just explode in the last decade or two. I mean, I'm old enough to know that there was a time, good luck getting a job, or good luck getting in a gallery, or good luck, I mean, you were stuck. Couple weeks ago, we were talking to Ricky Mujica, and he was talking about, he was doing romance novels because that's how you got to make a living,
Right. Oh, I think I did one summer. I sculpted the beaks for characters in Chuck E. Cheese. The animatronics. I sculpted like 50 beaks. And I made like $100 a beak, and
hey, it works, right?
We were talking about art whoring earlier, but you just do what you need to do, and lots of mural jobs and things like that. I mean, you did whatever you had to do to survive.
Right. That's a great point to talk about, because a lot of times artists, that are trying to make the transition of full-time artist, they lament, and I want to paint this, and I want to sculpt that, or I want to do this, and they haven't built up a following enough, and they haven't built a base up yet to support themselves that way. But it's almost like they refuse to get a day job that may or may not be in the same field. And for decades, I mean, I'm 48 years old. For a long time, that was the only way I could make a living, was doing other art jobs. I worked at a t-shirt shop, designing t-shirts for 10 years. It was like I did graphic design. It's like there's no shame in that as you're building your career to make the leap to full-time artist. And so, but a lot of artists, they panic and they just that. So you making beaks. Listen up, folks. If you're trying to make the transition, if you got to make beaks, you make beaks, and you be proud of it. So,
nice. I think I tell my students this all the time, that you have to be just as creative obviously in your own artwork. We want to be as creative and as innovative and as amazing as we can be with our work, but you have to be just as creative in how you make your money, because it's not a standard 9 to 5 punch a time card, get a paycheck kind of profession.
There's no safety net. Things can dry up really fast, and we were talking before we came on the air about the gallery scene versus online sales versus social media. And, if you rely on one thing, that one thing could go away. Recently, everything that was a storefront just came to a screeching halt. And if that was the only way you made money, you're in trouble.
Right. And like you said, it's exactly what I say too all the time. Many streams make a river. So you've got to, and I am a firm believer in, and as you'll see when we talk about the Munsell craziness, I'm a firm believer in just learning how to do as many things that interest you and have the abilities in so many different aspects, whether it be welding, which is the reason why I made that piece. Well, kind of. There's other reasons. But, just trying to get good at so many different things just makes you marketable and gives you so much more freedom and so much more of an ability to be able to pick and choose what freelance jobs you want to do or what you'd like to pursue, or who knows what that may spark for your own work.
Right. That's absolutely right. And so there's a lot of artists, David Cassani, he has his parallel palette. He found a need with a palette issue that he kept running into. And so he tweaked and built the parallel palette. And, that thing could become huge, and then that's all he's doing, you look at, that's where innovation comes from. But it's like, yeah, you're right. You never know. You could make a living selling, your sculptures that we're going to show here in a second of your medical sculptures and things like that. Right. All of a sudden you're doing nothing but that because the right person saw it and they have a need of a lot of them. All of a sudden you're doing just that. And that becomes your career.
If you were to ask me when I graduated from college, and I graduated with a painting and sculpture degree in undergrad, and I had this sort of idea in mind that, I was going to show in galleries, like that sort of over romanticized view of what it means to be an artist, which I had no clue. I just assumed, I just thought that was the track. You would have told me then that I would be producing and making my own online classes, when back then I avoided computers like the plague. I mean, computers, not a good cocktail. And yet, it's been the online courses that my husband and I started to make in, I think it was 2009, 2010. We started to see with our own little school that, there's only so many people in Chicago who want to learn how to paint. And out of those people, there's only so many people who want to learn how to paint things representationally. And out of those people, there are only so many who actually are close enough to us that want to make the commute or whatever. Right. The pool just kept getting smaller and smaller. And, let's try to open up our avenues. And we started to produce online content and online classes. And it's been the most rewarding experience because now, we have students in Tasmania, we have students in Saudi Arabia and Sweden and Alaska and, all over the world. Right. And
the reach that you would never have prior.
And plus, I think the most rewarding thing, and you would appreciate this having, with your Air Force background and your military background, we have a lot of people who are stationed abroad who have always wanted to take art classes, but they're in the middle of Germany, and where the heck are they going to find a school or anything? And we've had people whose, like military wives whose husbands are in Afghanistan and they're at home trying to raise 3 kids and they can't go anywhere or do anything, but they've always wanted to learn how to draw portraits.
Right.
And so
now they can learn.
Those have been the people that we have touched and reached. And it's been so amazing, the feedback that we've gotten and the amazing community that we've now been able to extend to.
Right.
So
we live in the most amazing time, don't we? I mean, this is such an amazing time to live in. I mean, It really is. the technology that we have. I mean, when I was coming up, especially where I was from, I mean, there wasn't an art store in, you know, I mean, good luck finding art, you know, I mean, I was drawing on paper grocery store bags with charcoal that I dug out of the fireplace, literally. And so it's like, but now it's like you're in Chicago and we're talking and looking at each other and there's no lag. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, it's like, I don't know if you remember, there was a comedian, I don't even know what comedian it is. He was talking about how bored and how bad people are. And he's like, you know, the guy was saying, you're sitting in a chair flying at 30,000 feet going 900 miles an hour. And you're complaining that your cell phone access isn't working very well because you're on the internet at the same time on your phone. It's like, it's like, but that's where we live right now. And it's like science fiction.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. So, but artists can use this technology to build a career that it would have never been possible even just 10 years ago.
Oh, I say to students that, you know, if Da Vinci were alive today,
oh my gosh,
I doubt he would be painting, I doubt he would be working on paintings of old men with beards and melted candles. He'd be up on the space station right now doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, he would be hanging out with Elon Musk and and doing stuff. Yeah,
inventing.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. It's like the potential of now is just, you know, I always try to stay positive, and it's like the potential of now is bigger than anything, you know. Now, with that in mind, like I feel fortunate. One of the classes that was mandatory when I was getting my master's of fine art, I went to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and I went online. I got my master's degree completely online at this school, and it was a world-class education. I couldn't believe it. And then, but one of the classes that was mandatory was something called professional practices, and it was how do you make a living as an artist?
Yeah.
And it was a full 15-week course on, okay, you've taken all these classes, you've done all this stuff. Now, how are you actually going to go out there and make money at it?
Right.
And I have learned that a lot of schools don't have a class like that. And so artists get this degree, and let's be honest, a lot of art schools is about the same price as medical school.
Yes.
And that's crazy.
It's shocking.
It is, you know, and the difference is that if you've got a medical degree, you can go out and get a job that makes really good money really fast. But if you were to get an art degree that costs the same amount of money, I could have bought a house with my student loans. Let me tell you what, nice house too. Better house than I got now. And I got a nice house. But, you know, it's like I'd have a way nicer house if I didn't have those student loans. You know, but it's like, it's so expensive, but there's no guarantee you're going to be able to make a dime. You know, that's why people make fun of having an art degree. They're like, oh, well, you're going to be working at McDonald's. You know, and I've heard that so many times. And it's like, you know, it's like, but when you have a class, it's like professional practices. How do you make a living as an artist? And that's why a lot of times when I'm interviewing, and that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation, it's like, okay, how do you do it? And you're talking about online education and creating training and doing all this and having students all over the world. You send out the widest net possible to catch fish, as opposed to Chicago. I mean, in Chicago's, let's face it, Chicago's like a giant roaring world-class metropolis that is, you know, one of the art meccas of the United States, but you still have this large of a net. But when you go on the internet, it's limitless.
Exactly.
Yeah. So great move. Well, here, let's do this because I want to talk to you about these. Let's go, because you said your first, you got a degree in painting and in sculpture. So let me show you one of these paintings, and this girl looks familiar.
Yes, and I'm okay. Everybody always asks when they see this, they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm so sorry.
I know, because you're so bubbly right now. I'm like, man, she looks a little sad and concerned, and it looks like your eyes are welling up in this painting. So tell us a little bit about this.
I sort of started and stopped with this painting with an idea that I had in mind. I wanted to do a series of paintings of portraits of people after having cried, like a sort of post-cry idea. And the rationale there was that I wanted the veneer to be completely stripped away. And I wanted there to be, what's a truly honest portrait of someone? Because, we always try to look cute and we always want to look so nice, and especially in the age of Instagram and Facebook,
Right.
where everybody's trying to plump their lips or make their skin look nicer.
Oh yeah. The camera at this angle with the lips. When they,
Right.
all the girls,
Right.
I don't know what this part means, but in the lips. But
I
got 4 daughters. Let me tell you what, I'm an expert on the duck lip finger thing.
The duck lip.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something that had a kind of challenge of authenticity and a kind of stripped veneer. And so, but come to find out, it's very hard to try to get people to
cry
on command, and then B, stop after crying and being comfortable enough taking photographs of them.
Right. Did you have any really messy criers
with my own portrait? And this portrait, strangely enough, and maybe this will be TMI. I don't know. But I had just had a kind of a bad week of, sending out lots and lots of, slides for different shows, for different competitions.
Mm-hmm.
I think I even sent out for a couple of grants.
Uh-huh.
And I did it throughout the course of maybe like 6 months, but it happened to be this one week that all of the announcements came back. And they were like, nope. And I just, it was just like, it was too much. And I think I had gotten, like, the last one was a show I was certain that I would get into because I had been in it, 2 years prior. And this is what I think it's important for people to know, that this, this business, it's very subjective and it's a total crapshoot. All of it is a crapshoot. You just know a judge's mood, or if they picked enough people already for the show, and so no one else is going to be given an opportunity because they've already picked enough people. You just don't know. And it's not anything that reflects upon you. It's just so random. And is it rigged? Yeah, maybe sometimes they are. You just don't know.
You don't know, yeah.
Friends are invited to be in a show and whatever. But it was just one of those weeks, and you got to have a thick skin with this job for sure. But it was like it was like the last straw, and I just got really upset, and I was really frustrated. And so I was in the studio, and I was kind of having my little cry and just trying to, I sort of feel like it's like releasing the poison from a snake bite. I got to have my cry, and then I'll be okay. And then I'll just shake it off and, move ahead again.
You had to have a good cry.
Right. And so after I had that cry, I said to my husband, David, I'm like, okay, you have to take a photo reference of me now, because I'll be okay. But you need to take it. And he's like, I don't feel right about it. I'm like,
because let me tell you, guys can't handle it. It's like, I got a lot of daughters, right? And so years ago, and this was my ex-wife when we were married and the kids were really little, I came home one day and they're all just sitting on the floor in the living room, bawling hysterically. So I walk into 3 women crying hysterically. I walk in and my man brain goes, something's wrong. Who do I have to murder? Who do I have to kill? What's going on? And I look and their mom goes, oh, we just needed a good cry. And I went, I'm going back outside. And I just turned around. And
just to get out. Yeah. So he got a good reference picture for me. And I did this painting, and I sort of felt like at the time that, I really was pushed to the brink where I thought, you know what, this is my last painting I'm ever going to do. Forget all of this, these stupid competitions and all of, whatever, and shows. I was so that it was like the next stage of grief. Like I just got angry and
you painted angry. You were angry painting.
Right. And so I just decided, that's it. This is my last painting I'm ever going to do. This is my swan song. And so I did it, got it out of my system. And I thought that was going to be it, that I could kind of like, close the drawer of my, with my paintbrushes and everything, and just, shake my, wipe my hands of it all. And the response from this painting was really, really lovely and supportive, and people wanted it in shows, and so it was like
the painting that was painted from rejection got accepted like crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's how, that's just so funny how life works sometimes.
Yeah. And
out of pain, great things can come. And, and you look at this painting, but it's so authentic. It's so beautiful. I love the way you do skin, and it's a beautiful, beautiful painting, but it's got something, it's visceral, it's got that emotional connection. Everybody has been here. And that's, when you can have a painting that connects with people on an emotional level, they get it. This is painting inward and painting outward. It's everybody understands that. And, so it's just an amazing painting. I just love it.
Thank you. And I think that's the power of figurative art now. I think, it's come back into the fold because I think people are really desperate for meaning and for being able to look at a painting and empathize and understand it or to try to like place themselves within that picture.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, a couple of years ago, no one would even have thought to buy an artist self-portrait. But now people are buying artist self-portraits all the time because they're connecting with both. People want connection. They don't buy art because they need art. They want a connection with the artist in a lot of ways. And so by buying an artist self-portrait, not only are you getting a beautiful painting that connects with you emotionally, you're also getting that connection to the artists and their heart. And really, that's what a self-portrait is, because people that aren't artists, they're like, they don't get self-portraits. And it comes across to them as egotistical or whatever. But it's like, no, it's like you're getting a glimpse of how the artist sees themselves.
Yeah.
And it's powerful. And it's like, once someone understands the power of a self-portrait, then they start to really want them. So, but let's now go on here. I want to talk about your sculptures. Now, talk to me about this one in particular. Well, actually, these two in particular. I love these. These are so awesome. Talk to me about these.
These were sort of born out of an idea. Well, I'd been in many shows where I had sculptures that, traditionally when you go to a museum or you go to a gallery and there are these large sculptures and they are usually grounded and placed on a plinth or on a pedestal. And every single show that I've ever been in where I've had a sculpture, even a life-size sculpture, life-size torsos that, those are kind of in your face, because the sculptures that I do nude sculptures. And because I'm just very interested in the anatomy and the bodies, and the idea here was that I have a kind of classical aesthetic to my sculptures, probably more so than my paintings. I think my paintings are a little bit more contemporary in figurative work, but my sculptures are a little more classical. And I wanted to try to make a kind of modern version of classical sculpture. And my frustration was also sort of born out of the fact that I would have these large sculptures in shows and people would come and they go set their drinks on the pedestals. at an opening, or they would just walk right by and they would go right to the wall. People were always going to the wall to look at paintings. And now that could be a completely American thing, because I think, especially in Europe, I know in Italy, especially because people are surrounded with incredible statuary and sculptures just in their daily lives, out on the streets. So I think that they're a little bit more influenced by that kind of surrounding. But here people always gravitate to the walls in galleries. And so I wanted to just remove the pedestal altogether and create something that was really in the space and that was activating the space. And I used material that was very modern. This is basically the same material that plumbers use to do quick fixes of pipes. If it's like an epoxy putty, and so
it's just an epoxy resin.
Right. Yeah. It's just a 2-part putty that you mix up. But, obviously I have big, giant, like 5-gallon buckets of it.
So this is not a bronze.
No. These sculptures, and they're about 48 inches in height. So they're fairly sizable. But each of them weighs maybe 12 pounds, and they float, actually. Like literally. Oh, wow. They float in water.
That's amazing.
The material is just amazing. This epoxy putty, and it takes metal paint really, really well. And and the metal paint that I use, which it's a very high percentage of like powder pigment, like actual copper or bronze or iron. And it's just suspended in an acrylic medium or whatever. And I paint it on, and it even accepts patina. So I'll spray different patinas onto different acids and things onto the metal, and it'll rust, and you'll get a beautiful verdigris.
Wow, that is just amazing. So did this epoxy work? It worked just like clay?
Yeah. It has a kind of a pot life, is what it's referred to as. So it depends on and the pot life is directly in relation to the amount of putty that you're working with. So if you have a lot of putty, the pot life is shorter. Because there's just a lot. It will cure.
Reaction cures faster, right?
Yeah. It's kind of somewhat an exothermic reaction. So I have to roll it out really, really thin, and it'll stay longer. And then I just lay it like dough inside my mold and kind of press it in, and then.
So you made a sculpture first,
right?
Then you made a mold
first.
And then you put, okay. I was trying to figure out how you were doing it. So that makes sense. Okay. So you made a clay mold first.
Still made a traditional way of sculpture where I'll make with water-based clay. I'll have an armature, I'll lay the clay on, and then I brush on a rubber mold. And then I've got a mother mold on top of that, pop out the mother mold, peel away the rubber mold, lay each of the halves into their respective mother molds, and then I can lay in the putty that way to cast them.
This is so cool. I'm so fascinated by that. Oh man, you get, did you make videos of the process?
I do have, I think it's on my Facebook page. I think it's fairly deep though, but I do have a video pulling away the rubber mold from a cast, I think, of one of the.
Man. Yeah, I would love to see a video from beginning to end of you doing something like this with that epoxy stuff. That seems really fascinating. That would be just.
I will do that next time around. I'm going to be
starting. There we go. Well, when you do it, let me know, and we'll do a big thing on the show here to debut your video. That would be awesome. That would be great. That would be great. It looks so like, I thought these were bronze. Now, are these the ones that were put in the permanent collection for a gallery?
Yes, these are both in the permanent collection at the Meme Museum in Barcelona, the European Museum of Modern Art.
Wow. So to see these, you got to go all the way there to see these in person.
Yes,
and they are there forever.
Going to Barcelona.
Right. Now, Barcelona would be a rough place to go. You know, it'd be a nice trip. So well, congratulations on that. That's a pretty big deal to get into a permanent collection. I think that, for a lot of artists, that's the dream, to get into a permanent collection at a museum or gallery. So that is a really big deal. That is fantastic. Now, you also teach these. Let me show these off and talk to us about this. And here's a class that you have.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about
classes to teach. It's I feel very, very privileged to work at Northwestern University's medical school, Feinberg School of Medicine.
Wow.
With first and second year med students. They have an amazing program there that is a humanities requirement that all medical students must take.
Really?
They can choose from a variety of courses. Some students choose creative writing, so they'll have a poet or a writer, and they will write about topics like death and dying, or chronic pain, or whatever. There's also an art history course that students can take. It helps them with being better diagnosticians. So they go into the museum and they have to look for certain things in certain symbols in works of art and try to understand them. There's also strangely enough, there's a magic class that they offer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very popular, and a lot of students who are pediatricians, they will take that because it helps with distraction for patients, or especially children, to show magic tricks and that kind of thing. And my class is a sculpture class, and so it's an anatomical based class where students are given a life-size skull, and we lay every individual facial muscle on the skull. And
I know that they teach. I've got a friend that teaches forensic science.
Yes.
And she has a crime lab. I mean, she teaches it at Florida State University in their Panama City campus. And apparently her lab is better than the local police. And so the local police will borrow her lab sometimes and have her do the CSI stuff because she's got a better lab. But she teaches the skulls that you were showing.
Yeah.
They do that in class too. So that's just amazing. So tell us about this. What do they call this again? I can never pronounce it right.
It's called an écorché.
Écorché. Okay. I always said écorché, but it's pronounced what now? Say it again.
It's pronounced écorché. It's a French word.
You would think the Frenchman would know how to say it right.
Yeah. It's that Florida man thing that's turning.
Écorché. There we go. I did it right.
Écorché. Yeah, you have to say it with the It's a French term. It means flayed figure.
Nice.
Historically, artists were taught to do sculpture. I'm a huge, because obviously I'm a bit biased because I'm a sculptor as well as a painter, but I really try to impress upon my painting and drawing students that they've got to learn sculpture as well to have better form sense, because making one sculpture, or I should do it. No, I should do it this way. There we go. Making one sculpture is worth 1,000 drawings, because you have to understand things from every single point of view. Right. And so this was taught for art students would learn what's underneath, how to understand the relationship between the skeleton versus the musculature versus what we see every day, which is the superficial forms of skin and fat and hair and all that stuff. So it's really truly learning about your subject matter on a deep level.
Amazing. I remember doing these in my anatomy class at the academy, and it was a fun thing. And my stepdaughter Serena went into the medical field, and she's studying to be a PA, and but yeah, she ended up taking my écorché drawing, and she stole it. But nice. I remember doing that, and that was anatomy class was just. It was both fascinating and so stressful. The two classes that stressed me out the most, where I was convinced I was going to fail the class, but I ended up getting an A in both. But I was convinced, oh man, while I was going through it, I'm going to fail this class. I'm so going to fail this class because it was stressing me out. It was anatomy and then color theory.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Which brings us to our next subject. And oh my gosh, what were you thinking? You were like I could just see Metallica music playing when we're building this thing, and like because this is like hardcore what you are about to attempt. Now I'm going to show a 3D model of it, so people, and then we can explain what it is we're talking about, and then we're going to show what you built. Mm-hmm. And then we can go into why would you do that to yourself? So let's talk about this right here.
Very good question. I'm not sure if I can answer yet.
You got to be a little crazy to be an artist, though. So, but let's talk about this right here. Now, this is what they call a Munsell chart, color chart.
So pretty.
I know, isn't it pretty? And my thing is, like everybody that knows me and my students hate me about this, is I am fanatical about color theory, even though it was the hardest class I think I've ever done. And it was just the professor was Professor Almadova from AAU. And she's the sweetest woman you would ever know, but she was the pickiest of the pickiest person in the world. She'd be like, yeah, your number 4 is too dark. This one's too light. This one, and it was like, you could never do it right. Never do it right. And I just drove you crazy. But this shows all the attributes that color has, right? Yeah,
yes.
So the hue, the chroma, the saturation, and the value.
Yes.
All in one giant chart. So it's like a super color wheel.
Yes. It's, well, I like to tell students, and this is, my husband and I, we are very much invested in teaching the principles of the Munsell color system.
Yes.
And Munsell was an artist himself who wanted to try to get a better system going for color theory. One that was very much akin to the notes in music. You can have people speak many different languages, but the language of music was universal. You could read notes on a staff and you understood where that particular note sat, whether it was on your instrument, on the piano, or what it sounded like. And Munsell had the same idea with color, and he created this Munsell system based on the 3 dimensions of color.
Yes.
What you mentioned before: hue, value, and chroma. And so this created what we refer to as color space. And so it's not just a flat color wheel, as maybe we've all learned in grade school, some people in college, and even in graduate school have learned. But that color takes up a 3-dimensional space.
Right.
And each color has its particular value. So it's based on its hue, whether it's red or blue or green. Value, whether it's really, really light, as you can see on the top of that color space, or whether it's really, really dark, or it's chroma, which the chroma is the rings. I basically think of the rings in the solar system of the planets. So the closer you are to the center, the closer you are to the grayscale, black to white, as you can see in that little system there. But
right there,
the further you get out, the higher the chroma. And it's chroma that's very elusive, that I think is what a lot of artists have a real problem with, have a real difficult understanding of, because you could see a low chroma hue, like a low chroma orange, and put next to it a very high chroma orange, even in the same value and the same hue, that same pie slice, and one will look like it's violet next to the other. And so it's not a hue shift, it's a chroma shift. And that's where I think a lot of people sometimes get a little bit over affected in their understanding of color. And Mansell wanted to make kind of numeric values for these colors so that you could visualize where those colors sit in color space, much like the notes.
Right. So it's almost like you're looking at color and you're going, okay, it's this way, then it's this way, then it's that way.
Yeah, like a value
like that
in
color.
the middle. It's you know, from a 1 red to a 10 red. So he divided it up into 1 red, 2 red, 3 red, all within that pie slice of red. And so it could be a red that's closer to violet, which would be a 1 red, or it's a red that could be closer to yellow orange, or red yellow, which Mansell liked to, or yellow red rather. Mansell didn't like to use the word orange because it would already make people think very symbolically of the fruit of an orange. So, and the same with, he didn't use the word violet because, again, people will associate it with the flower. So he uses purple instead. And so on Mansell, you'll see YR, which means yellow red. And so a 10 red is closer to that yellow red. So you can already kind of visualize
where things are
versus a warmer red, and then the chroma, the intensity of that color is what further out into space.
All right, well, let's show everybody what you built. Now, this is in your home studio, or is this at your school?
This is at our school studio. Currently, I have it in my garage. This was just very early on. There are, I think, the smaller spheres in there. Well, let me get to kind of describing it first.
Okay.
I created the structure. So I welded the structure on the top. That gave me an opportunity to beef up my welding skills, which is why I did it. And each of the large spheres are a hue in Mansell color space. And the smaller spheres I put in there as pigments. So colors right out of the tube of a paint, of a, whatever, different paint brands. And so that you can see where certain brand pigments sit within color space. And this would give you a better understanding of how to arrive at a certain color based on what tubes of paint you can use, or where you had to mix paints in order to arrive at that correct color. Just by looking at two different small balls in space and knowing that, if you need to meet somewhere in the middle, there may be a pigment for that. There may be something that is closest to that. So that was kind of the idea. And you can see these are some of the orange hues, the 5 yellow red, which is right in the middle. That's kind of like a true orange. And then there's the smaller little spheres there that are different paint brands that I've been able to use Mansell chips to find out where they're located. And it's a pretty great system to learn from and to really have a sense, just a better color sense, knowing what to anticipate, what colors to mix in order to arrive at certain colors, because it can be the tyranny of options. There's so many painters out there who will just put a gazillion colors on their palette. And sure, they can probably do that because they're very familiar with these colors. They've used them for years. But to the beginning artist, that just seems like the most daunting task ever. And so it can be very overwhelming. And the Munsell color space gives you a little bit more footing in how to understand, where to go and how to choose the right colors to mix and to work with on your palette. And you'll see the vertical axis there. That is the value scale. So black being at the very bottom, white being at the very top. You see the very little spokes, the little pie slices. So those are the hues, and the hues of the spheres themselves sit within a certain value range. We all know that yellow is a much lighter color than blue is.
Right.
So they don't sit on the same plane. They actually sit in different values. And then the circles, the different orbits closest to the center, you're going to have colors that are going to be grayer, sort of duller, and like a Naples yellow is a very light, high value, low chroma color, whereas a raw umber is a very low chroma, low value color. And yet they sit kind of in line with one another. And we wouldn't think that just put them together. We just think, oh, raw umber's brown. Well, no, raw umber is a very low chroma yellow.
Right.
Actually.
And so you can take this and show students and then really explain it. How has this thing helped you with students grasping the concepts?
Oh, it's been immensely helpful, because I think it just again, it gives them some footing. It gives them an idea of, that this just isn't a random tube of red or a random tube of some brown kind of dirty, what's
right. There's a method to the madness.
Because most paint colors, if it's not like a natural earth pigment that we are most familiar with as artists, raw sienna, burnt umber, that you'll have other colors like King's blue or phthalo green, and so not really knowing what those mean or where that particular color sits within.
Right.
Munsell gives it a value.
Right. Now, how long did it take you to make this thing?
It's sort of embarrassing to really. I did one of my most favorite people on the planet, another fellow sculptor of mine, Bobby Joe Scribner. He's a sculptor here in Chicago and out in Woodstock, Illinois. He has a metal shop because he's a metal sculptor. And I went out to his metal shop and welded that sucker. It probably took me about 4 weeks. I would go out once a week.
You're talking about the top part that looks like a barbecue grill.
Yes, exactly. So I did that all by hand and clamped it down and welded it together. And so that was probably about 4 weeks of time that was put together. Then I had to paint all the spheres. Now you may think, oh, well, that's no big deal. You just squeeze out the paint and do it. Well, I'm having to use pigments, right? And pigments aren't necessarily falling in the perfect Munsell space.
Right.
So Munsell chips, we have a big book of Munsell chips that we use in order to identify where
you have to match those chips.
So I have to match the chips. Now you'll say, well, don't those chips seem kind of random? Well, Munsell is based on using a spectrophotometer, which is basically, determining the placement on
the PMS chart. It's like the PMS chart in the graphic design world. There are thousands of colors and they all have a code.
Yes, exactly. And it's all based on science, on measured placement within that visual light spectrum. And
Right.
so I had to mix pigments in order to achieve
Right.
the exact Munsell.
Colors. Were there any colors that drove you nuts and took you forever to get to, or?
You know which ones drove me nuts were the violets, because violet pigment is very weak.
Yes.
It's very, very weak. So I think cobalt violet, in order for me to achieve because my goal was to get the spheres to look exactly like the color that was squeezed out of the tubes.
Oh yeah.
And so cobalt violet, and I spent a fortune on trying to get the best, because you could get a cheap version, but it's very, very weak. And it took me, even with the most expensive and most pigment loaded tube of paint, took me about 12 or 14 layers that I had to paint, which in the normal pigments, I usually did it in 2. I'd do a single coat, I'd kind of sand it just to make sure it was all fine, and then I'd do another top.
Now, what are the balls made out of? Are the spheres made out of wood, or are they made out of
they're just wood spheres with little screw eyes screwed into them.
And then you got to hang them at just the right spot.
Yes, and I made a ruler. I made Tim, you have no idea the insanity. So I made a ruler that I could hang. It had a little hook of wood, and it was measured to the exact relationship of all of the values on that vertical scale. And I could take that little hook with that measuring stick and just hook it right where it needed to be on my little barbecue grill. And then I knew where to drop the thread down in order to line it up in space.
Line it up just right. It's so cool to look at this thing. I mean, it's like every art school in the world needs this.
Yeah. Well, I believe Greg Parrish wanted to buy it off of me. And I'm like,
oh, yeah? You wouldn't sell it? So it is not for sale. Okay. So the next question is if somebody said, oh, I want one, would you do it again? Or would you be like, $8 billion? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. This is like the manifestation of the cray in my mind. This.
Right. And the thing is it's like, to have a chart like that, like nowadays with technology, building that in like a 3D environment that you could pull it out, like expand it and bring it back, would be great. But to have something like this hanging up, like almost like a chandelier.
And it's huge. The diameter is 5 feet.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it's about 5. It's maybe a little bit greater than 5 feet. The vertical axis. Of the values. And I didn't even do every single Munsell. I think for the values, I only did half steps, but Munsell goes into quarter steps. So I did value 1, 1.5,
right.
2, 2.5. Yeah.
I mean, if you did the entire if you did the entire thing like this, it would have taken you years.
Well, and the other thing is to fill in all of the gaps. And this was the thing, because this picture was taken very early on. I think I only had 40 tube pigments that are in there. It doesn't look like very much, but there are 40 tiny little balls in there. Okay. I have probably about triple that now. On it, because I was getting kind of obsessed trying to find tube pigments that would fill in gaps. So the gaps will never be filled up because I'm only using pure pigments. I'm trying to mix to fit every single color. It's only so that I can understand pigments that we have available to us that we can work from. Right,
because it's like when I see this, I'm like, it blows my mind because I'm building right on that wall right there. I have a wall and it's got the grayscale value at the top.
Yeah.
And then I have the rainbow going down and then the rainbow fades out to white.
Yes.
To black. And then that mural, and I'm doing it with latex paint, which dries a shade darker. So that's been a challenge. So I redid the grayscale one about 3 times already. And I finally got it dialed in. And then number 2, still just like that much too dark. But, you know, I'm getting ready to do red. And I'm like, oh, gosh, this is going to take me forever.
Yeah.
To see what you did, I'm like, what I'm doing is nothing compared to that. That is so impressive. But it's such a cool thing because it really is an incredible, number one, it's an incredible feat to accomplish as an artist and as a sculptor to do something like that. That seems like self-torture a little bit.
I'm very masochistic.
Yeah, I think you got to be a little bit. I think you got to be a little bit in this world to be an artist. You know, it's like we like to challenge ourselves and we like to go, you know, dive into the deep end of the pool and sink or swim. And, you know, it's like, you know, Michelangelo, who is my art hero, you know, he said, if people knew how hard I worked to achieve my mastery, they wouldn't think it's so wonderful.
Right.
You know, right. And it's, you know, and he was an animal. I mean, he worked himself to the point where if he worked anybody else that hard, he would have been in prison, you know, for brutality to his employees. But it was like, sometimes as an artist, you want to push yourself to that level. And I see that in you. You like to go into deep waters.
Yeah. Yeah. I always welcome a crazy challenge. So,
right. But that's a great thing. And that's really admirable. Well, a little bit.
I'm going to have it. I'll have it hung in the studio here so that you can see the full gamut.
Oh, that would be so cool. That'd be so cool. It's like I want to fly to Chicago just to see it.
Yeah, because it's so hard because there's such a weird forced perspective because it's so big and insane that no matter which angle you shoot it from, it's weird. It just looks like a jumble kind of cluster of crazy, which it is. But yeah,
there's a method to it, and when you understand the method, you grow as an artist, I think.
Yeah.
You know, color theory is like the toughest class to get people to sign up for. Mm-hmm. But to me, the ones that sign up and take the color theory class, they're like, where has this been all my life? Where is this knowledge? And it gives them the ability to do so much more.
Yeah.
When you understand color and value and you understand all the different aspects of it, you have got a weapon in your holster that is just, it's like a multi-tool, you know, It's got the saw, the knife, the hammer, the chisel. It's got everything you need in that little tool. You're like Inspector Gadget at that point, you know, and it's like, really, who doesn't love Inspector Gadget, right? Except all my younger viewers that are below 30 and don't know who I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah. Or I'd even say MacGyver and maybe
they're like,
me too. I don't know.
They don't know who that is either. So it's like, we're just showing, well, you know, I'm getting old. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Melinda, I just want to say thank you for coming on. This was such a great conversation. I just absolutely love it. Go ahead and stay on. I'm going to do our little housekeeping stuff here at the end. But I just want to again say thank you for coming on. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see all the analytics of this broadcast and see how it does, because I think it's going to be one of our best shows yet.
Oh,
so
thanks, Tim.
Coming on.
An honor to be on your show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I appreciate that very much. We're just appreciating each other all the time now. Yes. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. And with that, guys, man, it was a good show. I told you, man, I called it Modern Masters because I wanted to talk to not just any artist. I want to talk to the best of the best. And today, man, Melinda's knowledge and her art. And then I love the conversation of her going into the deep stuff and challenging herself and and your comments, you guys were blowing us up with all kinds of things. Melinda, you're a popular girl. And so, guys, with that said, I just can't thank you enough for watching. Again, go to the Gagnon Atelier page, hit the like button. We've got all kinds of great stuff coming out. You ain't seen nothing yet. Go to our Gagnon Atelier YouTube channel, subscribe to it, hit the notification bell. We've got a ton of great videos from all kinds of master artists. that'll just blow your mind. Next week, I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. I've got Michelle Dunaway. I have been trying to get Michelle to come on this show since I started. I have been tracking her down and sending her emails. And she responded a couple weeks ago and said, I'd love to come on. And I was like, a little bit of explosion. And I got excited. So she's going to be on next Friday with us. I am amped about that. And then on the 19th, we have got the double whammy. We've got Anna Rose Bain and her twin sister, Emily Olson. They are both going to be on, and they're going to make a Frenchman sandwich. I'm going to be in the middle, and they're going to put one on each side. And we're going to have a conversation with them about their art. And then on the 26th, we have got J. Scott McElroy. You are going to love talking to him. He has got some great thing. He is an artist and an author that is going to blow your mind. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you guys very much. With that said, just remember one thing. God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. I am out of here.